Welcome to the Love Conscious Human Podcast, your launchpad to cultivate and elevate your personal power. I'm your host, business strategist, and leadership coach, Dr. Teri. Let's have fun and jump right in. Hi, Shauna. Thank you for coming in today onto the Love Conscious Human Podcast. I know you're coming in hot with a very interesting subject to talk about in relation to the book, Flip Your Switch. I'm going to have you introduce yourself here in a minute, but first, I want to say to the listeners that you are an amazing young lady who's been working with me for a couple of years. I am your executive coach, so full disclosure here, we have this long relationship on which we've built to be able to have this conversation and have some fun and also, dig into some real stuff here. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh my gosh, so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and how do you fit into this world?
Yeah, sure. Oh my gosh. So my name is Shauna. I have been working in the retail marketing industry for a little over 15 years now, since I graduated college in 2008, which was a little bit of a turbulent time to enter the working world, with ripple effects into, the whole career. I'm a mom of two young ones, an almost 2-year-old and an almost 4-year-old. So that colors my world in a huge way as well. And I've been working with Dr. Teri for many years now, been lucky enough to build a relationship over the years and have her as my executive coach as I try to learn and grow into the working world and the world at large. So I think that covers it.
Great. So obviously, you have read the book, and we're talking about the book, Flip Your Switch, A User's Guide to a Whole New Mind. So for anybody out there, it's about 52 chapters, one chapter a week, which is the journey that I take my clients through, but also 35 years, some of empirical research to figure out a whole bunch of stuff, and felt the need to put that down into written form so that people can have access to it without having to come to me for coaching. So you come to us today with your thoughts around a specific chapter and how things are happening in the world and in your life today. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So Dr. Teri knows this, and I know this about myself, but anyone listening won't. I have a long history with the emotion we like to call anger. And it's a continuing relationship. I mean, we all have a relationship with that emotion, and it is kind of my go-to, and I'm learning to do different things than that. But the chapter that I'm really interested in talking about, sort of in relation to this, is 18. I believe it's part 2 of the book, chapter 18, how systems serve us or not. There's so much happening in the world today related to and because of the systems that have been put in place by humanity. And there are things that make a lot of us, myself included, really angry and frustrated and sad. So these emotions that are not particularly, or they don't feel very aligned with love consciousness per se. So in one of the first sentence on this page here that really got me is that we can derail from love consciousness to war consciousness, I think, pretty easily sometimes, maybe without even realizing it. And it's because these systems that we're working within are also sort of born from that. So it feels a little counterintuitive for me to approach certain things that make me so angry with love consciousness, even though intellectually I know that love consciousness is like the way to view it. It's the way to move forward. It feels like, well, what do I do with all this anger? And can love consciousness really create and maintain these sustainable movements that feel like they're needed? Is there enough energy there to like make change and make the waves that I want to make?
Right.
So
Right.
that's a very loaded, multiple question, but that's what's
Yeah.
on my mind today.
It's a very loaded one, but it's also one of the things that people really hit first when they're going into like, what is this love consciousness thing? How do I become love conscious? What do you mean? Like, if somebody's beating me with a stick, excuse me? Like,
Right.
like there's always this and part of that we have to understand on an individual basis is that we that is the war consciousness speaking up and individually putting us in a situation of dire straits.
Mhm.
So, it's sort of like, first off, that's a war conscious function, putting us back into war consciousness, right? Just the way we frame stuff out. Like, you're in your question, there's a lot of like very subtle war conscious ways of looking at the actual thing from the right or wrong, win or lose, get them to do things, get them to change point of view, which is actually war conscious. And we're so trained in this, especially in business. Like, you got to make it work and you have to get an ROI out of something and the faster the better. And so with that, it's like, well, how do we get traction on something like this? How do we get critical mass? And part of the thing is that the framing of the question in itself is war conscious, because this is the deal. And this is the quote that I have from Albert Einstein for this particular chapter, which is, no problem can be solved from the level of consciousness at which it was created.
I mean, so humbling.
Right? But it's like, oh, yeah. So here we are at the level of consciousness, which is mostly war conscious from where we're coming from. We're reaching for love consciousness, but we want to deploy. We want to deploy and get results. And
Yeah,
that desire to deploy and get results is part of the problem.
right. That's tough to hear, but I know you're correct.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the problem. And this is something that anybody and everybody who wants to find love consciousness, health and well-being, happiness, a deep relationship, all of these things, anybody who wants any of those things is going to have to learn.
Hmm. It
We
makes me think
all,
of the phrase of like, you can't fight fire with fire, even though people do sometimes say, you can, and that is a strategy I think some folks take in business and otherwise. But
well,
it's kind of that.
well, let's think about it, because technically firefighters do fight fire with fire, but what do they do in order to do that? They go in and they scorch,
Hmm.
they kill.
Hmm.
So if we have a rampaging fire, they kill a strip of enough of the actual food for the fire to starve
Hmm.
it out.
Right,
Okay.
right.
This is a very interesting thing. So I'm going to use your example to demonstrate something. You can use things that appear to be war conscious in a love conscious way,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
So, with the fighting fire with fire, what are the firefighters doing? They're saving a part of the forest by using fire, the thing that's coming at them, to stop the ability of the fire to move forward and destroy
Yep.
everything. So a blade can be like that too. You can stab somebody or a surgeon can save a life.
Hmm.
A
Hmm.
blade is not inherently war conscious or love conscious. Fire is not inherently love conscious or war conscious. Okay? Neither is anger.
Okay. That is kind of nice to hear in a way, because sometimes I can feel like I'm angry about this and I shouldn't be, and it's like you can start to sort of shame yourself for having emotions, which also intellectually I know is not helpful and not real. but it's like, okay, well then what does this look like? How does it have a place here? Like, how do you use anger in a love conscious way that feels counterintuitive? They feel mutually exclusive. So
Right.
I'm
Well,
happy to
it's
hear they're
like the
not.
fire or the blade.
Yeah.
Okay. So anger, if you're in your war conscious state, that left brain calculate, capture, contain, and control state, and that is the dominant of who you're being. Anger then just becomes another thing to take you down the rabbit hole into hate,
Hmm.
into doing violent, horrible things, just try to make yourself feel better or make you feel like you're winning something or you're beating somebody down, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And it's scary because it's in a lot of movies and stuff too. And we kind of like glorify taking our anger and then turning it and weaponizing it against people,
Hmm.
right?
That's seen as strength and that's seen as a virtue and it's seen as a good thing.
No. And that's where it's like the knife and it just becomes stabbing and slashing.
Hmm.
It's not actually creative or helpful. There's no positive outcome. It is a net negative outcome.
Hmm.
Here, that's what war consciousness does.
Hmm.
Weaponize everything and anything, including our emotions and our thought patterns and our narratives, in order to create negative outcomes. And we think we're doing it in a very childish sort of way, ignorant way, in order to like make ourselves feel better or fix something. Okay. Which may have a delusional or illusion of gain somewhere, but
Yeah.
mostly it's net negative. Now, anger can be, and I learned this in Buddhism because there's actually an angry Buddha. There
Mm.
is a Buddha who incarnates anger.
Okay.
It's like, what? Aren't we supposed to be all loving kindness? I'm confused. And then it's like, no. See, anger was given to us. Anger has a place and it has a function. Like the scalpel of the surgeon, it has function. From a place of wanting healing, from a place of understanding and comprehension, where we elevate our consciousness, we don't weaponize anger, we use it as a surgical tool. But that means we have to have the anger, not let the anger have us.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's the difference. And
Yes.
that's why the consciousness needs to be at a higher level. So when you're actually in a love consciousness, anger can be used like the fire or the blade to make a difference, to create positive outcomes, to make a difference, to help people. You have children.
Hmm.
Sometimes a growl, a little bit of anger can wake them up from their little narcissistic minds, which they're, at certain age, it's normal to be narcissistic. You're figuring out what are your fingers and toes and nose, right?
Hmm.
Completely obsessed with yourself.
Hmm.
Natural to a certain age, right? Toddlers.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, but a growl and sometimes a little bit of a smack is a wake-up call. I'm not saying to beat your children because, that's just insanity. But there are things in life that that energy, that fire energy, like the little red emoji.
Well, yeah, it has to be like channeled, I guess, in a way. And I think what you're getting at, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like the ways that I do teach my 3, almost 4-year-old what to do with his anger. It's not okay to hit your friend. It's not okay to hit, but you can hit the pillow. You can stomp your feet. You can growl. These are the things you can do with it. And then tell me about it when you're a little calmer.
Yeah.
But yeah, doing something destructive isn't helpful to anyone.
No,
In
and
fact,
it's
it's destructive, right?
exactly. And it's about also like anger's not there to inflict hurt on you or yourself or someone else. that's actually not the function of anger. It's like the fire in the belly.
Mm-hmm.
Anger is like the fire in the belly. It's there to push you forward, to help you get over your homeostasis of keeping your head down. It's there to push you into the fight mode because you need to defend something.
Okay, this is like coming together. So that's kind of what I'm feeling like. These things that happen, anger is almost a call to action,
Yes.
right? But it's not the best for it to be the leader.
Right.
It
It's a
shouldn't be
call to
leading the
action, but it's
charge.
not, it shouldn't be determining the action.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is a call to action, and it's like an energy source, like you see in the movies. It is an energy source. Now we're talking about the chapter, how systems serve us or not, and you brought up a lot of things happening right now. If you feel free to mention them, please, of what's going on with you, and because I know it's going on with a lot of women everywhere right now, myself included. And you've got I saw some beautiful posts on your story on your Instagram. Then I was like, yep, yep, I'm with you there, Shauna.
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, there is something. I mean, there's a few things that are very like acutely happening in our world today. And yesterday it blew up that the NFL player, not even certain of his name, don't even want to say it to give him another iota of attention, but made a commencement speech that basically told this audience of graduating students from college that any women in the audience shouldn't be thinking about the promotions and money they're going to make. They should be thinking about how their value is in becoming mothers and supporting their husbands at home, which it makes me ill to even say those words. I'm getting like a frog in my throat from it. But it made me so angry to think that not only he was made to be confident enough by our world to think that that was a good idea. It also made me so angry to hear people in the audience clapping for what he was saying. And it made me so angry to think that he was given a platform to say these things by any institution, let alone a college or university that's preparing, young people to go out in the world. It's so disappointing to me. It's so frustrating. And if you listen to his speech, I only listened to part of it to be fully transparent, but it's like he's saying things that he's like missing his own point from my view, that he's saying things like people should stay in their own lane. Meanwhile, he's a man talking about women's experience and what they should do. He's saying things like, my wife, you know, is holding me up. I'm able to rise because she's holding me up, which is like, that's why women at large have a hard time. It's one of the reasons we have a hard time rising in other areas outside the home in the world, because we don't have anybody traditionally who's holding us up at home. We're holding ourselves up. So it's like he's saying these things, missing his own point. And it just makes me so angry. And I mean, I could get into just like the wars, multiple wars, and, borderline famines that are happening across the world that are impacting women and children and mothers more acutely than anyone else. I mean, I could even go into the idea of companies moving back to mandated in office and how that also disproportionately impacts women, and if we're talking about caregivers slash women in family systems, because we still have to traditionally take care of most of the stuff at home, and we're being forced to go back to an office where the men get to just focus on work because they, again, traditionally have someone at home. We could talk about, the fact that that's a heterosexual relationship. Then there's other ones than that. I don't want to like pigeonhole that, but My point is basically like this just exists in so many ways. And that acute example of this commencement speech just threw me into a tizzy last night and into this morning. And I was like, this is really a great example of where anger comes up for me. And I start to shame myself and I start to really wonder what to do with it.
Yeah, but what you're looking at is so you're picking out, we talk about this in the book. Let's so much here. There are these constructs about whether, patriarchy, male and female roles, and this is the way it is. And these constructs are something we just sort of absorb as young people. We don't really know that that's what we're doing. We don't feel like we're at choice with what we're doing. And so we're just doing it. And that's just the inherent nature of human beings. And we have created through the patriarchal, historically white, male led choice points of several hundreds of years. We've created systems that serve some of us and not others.
Sure.
Okay. Now, this is fundamentally war conscious.
Mm-hmm.
The system itself is fundamentally war conscious. Otherwise, it would be much more considerate of serving everybody. That would be a much more love conscious society. Same with business models under the white supremacy and under the patriarchy. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
even saying that those things are bad. I'm just saying this is the system we're in.
Sure. Like if you remove judgment, it's just this is what it is. Yeah,
What it
exactly.
is.
Mm-hmm.
Discernment, not judgment. I'm not
Right.
judging. I'm just saying, for every, there are like a handful of female CEOs, and then the rest of them are all men,
Yeah.
mostly
Mm-hmm.
white. I mean, this is just the way it is. This is the landscape we're in. And if this landscape is starving you out, is not naturally supportive, it's not creative, it's not whole, it is fundamentally war conscious.
Mm-hmm.
It's the haves and have nots. It's the winners and the losers, you know? And so the landscape is what you're looking at on so many levels. That is injustice is what some people call it.
Mm-hmm.
I call it war conscious because I take out the judgment, because injustice makes us go down a rabbit hole of, okay, how do we get back at them? Because we go quickly
Yeah.
we go quickly from judgment to revenge, from
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's where we go, and that's where the anger will take you, and we don't want to go there.
No.
Be a little more constructive about it. So fundamentally, it's like, how do you hold on to, as an individual or as a group, the love conscious nature of things in order to navigate in a war conscious world? And I like to say sometimes it's a little bit so when you're on your path, trying to switch from war consciousness, predominantly spending all your time in that state of being, and you want to switch over to love consciousness, predominantly being in that state of being. On that journey, it feels like you are trying to hum a lullaby in a Led Zeppelin concert.
Yes.
Like, it's like, when will I be heard? But we have to stop wanting to be heard in that way. And there's a lot of moves that we can make. And you've done it a little bit on your IG, your Instagram, with your stories. Like you shared last night or this morning a story of a woman just speaking to the camera saying, "Hey, this is what I saw." And she's pointing it all out. And like, this doesn't make any sense. He's like you were saying, like he's missing his own point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're a dude. How do you get to say that about what women are feeling or doing or what works for somebody? Like, you don't know. Like, and so that is a more elevated way of looking, because what you're doing from a love conscious point of view is you're picking it apart. You're using the multidimensionality of right mind and right brain, creative brain thinking to step back and poke holes in something. And you're not getting pulled into the duality of I'm right and he's wrong.
Right.
Okay?
Because I also can like see, I don't want to say it's not his fault that he thinks that way. But
It's
at
a
the same time, it's true that
choice. It's
men are, and people who are socialized as male or boys are brought up in a different way than girls, women. So it's like he's a product of this environment. I mean, we all are, right? That's why this critical thinking and, why your book is so important of like looking at things from different perspectives, higher level, lower level, left, right, whatever you want to say, looking at things from a different perspective is so just necessary.
yeah, absolutely. And it's also there's a lot more peace of mind in it because we want like you're coming in and you're like, what do I do with all this anger? And it's like, well, like let the fire be in your belly, but just let it be a fire in your belly. Love the fire in your belly. You know, embrace the fire in your belly. Don't catch fire, but let the fire be in your belly. We've been taught a lot as women that the fire in the belly is a bad thing.
Hmm.
No, no, it's life-giving. It's force. There's a lot of life force in that fire in the belly thing. There's
But you have to control it, like as the owner of it, I guess.
Mhm.
And it makes me think about, the way that I have personally just built my life with my husband, who is an incredible partner. I half joke sometimes he's a better feminist than I am. Like he'll kill me for saying that, but like he is amazing and he is a true partner. I don't have to do most of the housework. I don't live in a patriarchal home and my children get to see that. And like what a gift to them that they get to see, him doing the same things as I do.
Yeah, and they get to see
Kind
mom
of
works too.
Yeah, like they get to see the multi-dimensional aspects of both of us, both of their caregivers. And I think that's incredible. And I'm so grateful for a partner like that and for, even, your help like getting me to sort of see that that's what I want and to sort of help work towards what that means. And I think that is so important and I'm grateful for that and I sort of can say all right, I know that this is a piece of what I can do with this anger is like take it to sort of build something that is different
Mhm.
than what maybe this NFL kicker thinks or anyone else. Not to say it's better or worse, right? Because that's where we get into trouble.
Mhm.
But like that doesn't feel like enough.
Mhm.
And is that just a truth I have to live with and say it is enough, it's all you can do, like deal with it?
Um,
Or is there more that we
I
can
think
do?
again, I think when you ask the question, like, or when you make the judgment that it's not enough, that's a judgment, not a discernment. Remember that, Chopper?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're falling into the judgment rather than the discernment. Instead of being like, well, this is great and I've done this. Like, look, you just outlined it for the audience. And it's like, okay, so yeah, I have an actual partnership in my marriage. You have created a bubble of other form of, it's not like you said, I don't have a patriarchal household. So I have this other thing set up. So you've created a mini system with its own set of like rules, and roles that are well thought out. They're individually designed because of your personal work, your husband's personal work. You come together as whole human beings. You create agreements that are naturally designed for you by you for the benefit of yourself and your children. You're not doing this because of some exterior construct that
Mm-hmm.
is going to please some mysterious system out there that tells you and puts you in a state of delusion about how it's going to take care of you.
And the other side of it is I'm not doing it. And I know there's so many other people. I have friends who have similar marriages and relationships too. Like this is happening and it's great. Another sort of alternative, I feel like on the other end of the spectrum is you could build a system in your own life that is sort of anti, oh, well, I don't want to be like
Mhm.
this traditional wife thing that's happening. So I'm going to do this sort of anti
Right.
in like to fight it. And
Right.
that's not what this is. It's like this
Right.
sort of separate thing. It's not like, oh, I'm going to follow these rules and be taken care of. And it's not, oh, I'm going to, go against these rules because I think they're wrong. It's something entirely different.
Yes, it is something entirely different, and it is fundamentally love conscious because it is not just switching to, oh, a different dogma, right? I'm not just going to come out of the patriarchy and then become anti-patriarchal. That's not what we're talking about.
Right.
'Cause that's a total trapdoor into war consciousness. It's like, well, one minute I'm a Republican. Oh, I don't like those people anymore. Fine, I'm going to become this other thing. Instead of
Right.
actually thinking, wait a minute, what do I care about? What is important? How do I want world to move forward? You know, what's important to me? What is my calling? How can I contribute? What makes sense to me? What is the definition of creative and whole for me moving forward? And for my family and for my friendships and I mean I created a ladies group just because I wanted those relationships and I wanted to deepen those relationships with a select group of women who are very love conscious, and I'm like, well, I need more of that in my life to fortify myself in my own love consciousness. So then I created my group, and it's a personally created group. It's just for the people that I know and recognize as love conscious, and we come together to actually talk about it and be that together. So it's like, well, what do you do? What are the new ways that you do this that are completely sort of invented from scratch because you know that you need it? And again, it's all of that going inside, not trying to contrast and compare necessarily from the constructs, just noticing and saying, well, that doesn't actually work for me so much. What, when can I use that construct? And when will I not use that construct?
Mhm.
Right? So, simple example, I can be with my husband in a certain environment and it's about him. Maybe he's giving a talk or whatever, some executive venue, something. And I'll just be his wife. I'm not a professional. I'm not Dr. Teri. I'm just that person's wife standing by him, and that's okay. But that's not who I am all the time. That I use the construct of husband and wife in that particular thing. I fall into a role, just like if I'm going to a cocktail, I'm probably going to wear my little black dress
Mhm.
because I know that's what works. There's a construct about what to wear. And so I just use that. I don't show up with feathers and pink because that doesn't correspond to the construct of an expectation of society. But I don't have to live there. Then I come home, and I come home and within myself and I go back to me, the whole me, not just the partial me out there in society. Like we talk about the shell, right?
Mhm.
And I come back to me, and I come back to my home, which is all organized according to my personally designed roles, rules, values. And that is the actual love consciousness of it, which will look different for everybody as
Yeah.
we evolve.
And I'm kind of like it almost makes me like want to laugh a little bit because it's so, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing you sort of say is the way to I don't even want to say fight war consciousness because that's not what it is.
How about to diminish
Yeah,
or dissolve?
is to like basically make your own life in every aspect possible love conscious, right?
Yes.
And that, like, whether it's friends, your relationship, work, just approaching things from this perspective is helpful to the system and yourself and everything, right? That is like this slow snowball effect almost, making small little waves where like I think a lot of my peers want to make huge tidal waves, want to set systems on fire and see them burn immediately. We want instant gratification, right? And how could we not? I mean, the injustices in the world are just, it's just beyond comprehension. And it's frustrating to
So,
know that like it is this small snowball effect. But
so I wanna correct you on that a little bit about
okay.
small. Okay.
Okay.
Chapter in the book, small is great.
Mm-hmm.
So when we do this, it's about being a bright light. So I want you to imagine how, how when you get together, like with my ladies group, it's like the energy just because we get together and we're all coming from love consciousness, it just like there's like this exponential positive love conscious energy that comes and we all go away, we all have these takeaways and we all feel great, and it's like we all realign some of our thinking about certain subjects because we got into it and we were with people where it was safe and we could talk about it and understand it, and we're all leaning into the love consciousness. Now with that, it's like we brighten the light of somebody else by doing that in small groups, because it's really hard to do in big groups because of the landscape being that Led Zeppelin thing. So think of planet Earth and think of each person working on love consciousness as a bright light, like a dot, like a little dot of golden white light.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the more one light shines, it's sort of contagious. It's energetic. It's not like we can leverage something and go change the world. It's energetic. And so the more your light is bright, the more it connects to other little lights around the world and sort of forms a mesh around the world. So we're kind of energetically shifting the mind field of planet Earth. Kind of like fish swimming in a that manage to swim in a school and in unison, or
Mm-hmm.
birds that fly in unison. There's like a morphic field. So
Yep.
when you make yourself a really bright light by understanding what to do with your anger, how to use it, and how to just, use it as a fire in the belly and not a reacting and leaning into things like hate. If you when you learn to do that, your light gets brighter and brighter and brighter. You make more decisions in your own personal life about what you will or will not accept or tolerate. And that's coming from clarity, coming from love consciousness, coming from actual question asking and actual life designing for yourself. And then what are the friendships that you have? And how do you show up at work? And what do you say or not say to a colleague that is creative and helpful to them? And noticing how you choose to be that way, growing your light. And so that becomes contagious. And the cool thing about this is that we are all naturally at our core love conscious. That's the
Mm-hmm.
nature of our core
Mm-hmm.
as humans. A lot of the other stuff is defenses, survival, and all the things we had to learn to be physically surviving in this world and this war conscious landscape. but that's not who we are at our core. So if the more you shine brightly, the more it spreads. And I think that's where it gets big. It's just really hard to quantify.
And it takes time, right? Like there's just no instant gratification here. That's just not realistic to think no matter what, whether it's anger leading the charge or love. It's not, neither thing is gonna make any type of change super
No,
quickly.
no super
And
quick.
in fact, I mean, would it be truthful to say that like war consciousness only kind of just either one, I guess, maybe perpetuates itself?
Yes, they perpetuate themselves, each one. So the more you react and act from the war consciousness, the more you're making that, like, that's why we trash the planet. Like, that's why business people think that it's okay to dump chemicals in the river because it's in some other country, and the kids that are going to die and the deformations at birth that happen in somebody else's family, it's okay because they're not real. Because from more consciousness, everything, nothing is real. It's all just, did you win? Did you lose? Get it right, fix it, whatever. And from love consciousness, we do care. So when we start to care, then we start to make other decisions that are more caring and comprehending and compassionate, and that just snowballs in its own direction. But they're not actually in full contrast. Love consciousness actually can hold war consciousness within it.
Hmm.
War consciousness is diminished, like we talked about your anger, it gets diminished down into just the functionality of the tactical practical of daily life. Like, I got to buy a plane ticket. How much is it? Check the box. Let me compare to this thing and what would be better, which one gets us there faster, cheaper, safer, whatever. That's actually the left brain function, which needs to be diminished. And why, like I said, in this system, service or not, the higher consciousness is necessary. Because when you elevate, you see a bigger picture. And then instead of acting out of anger, you use the anger to go and do something. Like you would use a surgeon's blade to go and do something to make a difference from a love conscious perspective on the whole.
Yeah, and this is making me think of something that like I mean, you have helped me work on more recently. Again, full transparency here of like what I'm working on with myself, but the aspect of like getting more context is like more helpful. That helps you see things from a higher level and getting curious instead of reacting. Instead of reacting out of war consciousness, okay, how can I get curious? See, this is my brain trying to turn it into something of what can I do? That's what I
Mm-hmm.
always like. But like I could get curious instead of just angry about what's the context here? What am I really looking at? And then from that perspective, like, how do I want to live? How do I want to be? Then what can I do? Instead of what can I do? And then looking back and be like, oh, I don't love who I was being in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, but that's beautiful what you just said. And that is fundamentally, these are the little incremental things that we can do to lean into the love consciousness, which is really, okay, get curious, look at context, try to comprehend, step back, have a critical thinking point of view, not a reactive, rejecting way of being. Don't be so judgmental. Have a little bit of more discernment. What's really happening here? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what are the different players? And in this multi-constellation point of view, what's going on, right? So, with that, I think we can kind of close up for today, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, no, this is great. Thank you so much. What a gift.
Thank you. And we'll put down in the notes a little bit about you. And if you're happy to share maybe your Instagram or something with someone, we can put it down there too.
Okay, yeah, great. And everybody get Flip Your Switch. Everyone in the world should read this. It's like a handbook for living life in current times. So can't
Thank
recommend
you,
it enough.
Shauna. Take care.
Take care. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode from start to finish. It is always a pleasure to reach a fellow love-conscious human. If you want to expand on your consciousness education, check out the book, Flip Your Switch, on Amazon, and the courses on loveconscioushuman.com. Or you can book a private coaching session with me. We hope you'll join us again. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Let's come together to crowdsource a love-conscious world.